A Magician's Aloof Tales. Chapter 1. Feathers danced and twirled in the gentle embrace of the spring breeze, each flurry accompanied by the melodious echoes of children's laughter that filled the air with joy. The sun shone brightly, glowing warm and invitingly over the vibrant capital. The streets were a lively tapestry of activity, children engaged in spirited play and passer-byers bustling through with their everyday lives. A group of kids armed with fluffy pillows swung at each other in a delightful melee, sending a flurry of feathers into the air like whimsical confetti, celebrating the joy of youth. The heavenly aromas of sweet pastries and freshly baked goods wafted through the streets, teasing the senses and stirring up a hunger deep within. The delightful scent of cinnamon and sugar mingled with the enticing smell of warm, crusty bread, creating a sensory tapestry that beckoned passers-by to indulge. This lively atmosphere unfolded in the bustling capital city of Thesian, a diverse and vibrant realm nestled between the territories of Brioche and Liatre. Brioche, a sprawling region inhabited by humans, boasted considerable size and wealth, its people celebrated for their resourcefulness and creative ingenuity. While they might not be the mightiest in physical strength, the sheer population and versatility of the human race made them a formidable force across the land. In contrast, Liatre, the domain of the graceful elves, was a smaller but no less powerful region, renowned for its profound wisdom and mastery of the arcane arts. The elves of Liatre have long delved into the intricacies of magic, crafting spells and systems of enchantment that were as captivating as they were complex. Magic was a prevalent resource, accessible to anyone willing to learn. It thrived in the air like a living entity. With the power of words at their disposal, users could channel their will through a stream of mana, crafting spells that materialized from the depths of their desires. With a mere 100 known spells and countless more simmering in the shadows, the possibilities were as infinite as the stars. Amidst this lively tapestry of life, a figure walked purposefully down the paved cobblestone streets of Thesian, taking in the breathtaking sights and the vibrant hum of community that surrounded him. Nicholas Granfry was no ordinary man. He was a distinguished scholar of magic, holding the revered title of the most powerful spellcaster alive. With hundreds of years of unwavering dedication to his craft, he had immersed himself in countless studies, experiments, and reflections, refining his magical skills to astonishing levels. As a unique liaison between the regions of Brioche and Liatre, his presence alone symbolized a bridge of understanding and cooperation. This bond was made even stronger by his daughter's marriage to Prince Dante Greaves, the son of Brioche's human king, intertwining the fates of both realms in a tapestry woven from love and mutual respect. As he walked, his thoughts wandered, reflecting on the countless hours he had spent sequestered in his study, steeped in books and scrolls, consumed by his research. His assistant had finally insisted on dragging him away from his relentless academic pursuit. He had spent 5 days in a fervor of study without break, barely emerging to eat or sleep. Nicholas, embodying the spirit of a resolute scholar, had acquiesced to the exertion of a leisurely walk to clear his foggy mind. Standing tall, Nicholas was an older yet striking elf, his stature commanding yet graceful. He was clad in an elaborate gown of deep purple, embellished with exquisite black and gold markings that flowed fluidly, radiating an aura of elegance befitting his status. His long, silvery hair shimmered in the sunlight, a testament to both his heritage and his unyielding vitality. Despite the years that accumulated on his shoulders, his features retained that telltale youthful glow characteristic of the elven race. As he walked, the enticing smell of food abruptly captured his attention, causing him to halt in midst of the lively chatter. Aromas of garlic and roasted meat wrapped around him like an embrace, almost causing his knees to buckle under their tantalizing weight. It had been far too long since he'd last savored a meal, and the mouth-watering scent beckoned him with the promise of satisfaction, like a cool drink of water after a long, arid journey through a desert. With a resolute sense of purpose, he made his way toward the nearby tavern, determined to satiate his growling stomach. At the entrance, a cheery voice broke through the atmosphere.
"Hey, Nick, where have you been? Fancy a plate?"
A middle-aged woman, with a demeanor as warm as her hearty meals, waved cheerfully at him. Donned in a simple yet charming white and blue dress, Mrs. Nita was short and plump, her hazel eyes sparkling with good-natured mischief and gentleness. Standing at the door of the bustling establishment known as the Dragon's Bowl, she welcomed him with a smile that could brighten the cloudiest day. The tavern was a grand establishment, adorned with sturdy wooden beams and quaint clay walls that exuded warmth and comfort. A second story of the tavern served as an inn for those who might indulge too deeply in the tankards of ale on offer. Nita and her husband had spent years cultivating this establishment, transforming it into a beloved hub for patrons of all sizes and races, where laughter mingled freely with the clinking of mugs and the soft strains of music. With a smile gracing his features, Nicholas followed Nita into the lively tavern, where the rich tapestry of people from all walks of life blended seamlessly.
"Like I could ever say no to your family's food, Mrs. Nita. How is business?"
he replied, rubbing his stomach in anticipation. He sank into a sturdy wooden chair at a rustic table, nodding to a few familiar faces amidst the crowd. Some patrons recognized him thanks to his fame, while others had shared unique experiences alongside him during various quests and magical exploits. While Nicholas had become accustomed to the usual flow of familiar and unfamiliar faces within the tavern, it struck him that many newcomers had found their way into the city of Thesian, fostering a sense of curiosity in his heart. Seating himself, he felt the clamor of the tavern envelop him like a warm embrace. The patrons continued with their merriment, drinking, laughing, and sharing tales, as he took in the kaleidoscope of humanity and elven kind around him. Yet amidst the familiar comfort, he couldn't help but notice the surge of new faces milling about, each one adding to the vibrant mosaic that symbolized the ever-changing heart of Thesian. Nita caught the glint of curiosity in his eyes as he shifted in his seat.
"It's been utterly chaotic since the discovery of that new trade route,"
Nita said, her voice laced with a mixture of pride and weariness.
"The influx of travellers and merchants seems never-ending, and it's been working my dear husband to the bone just to keep pace with the relentless demands of the business. I had no choice but to hire some extra hands just to ensure that everything runs as smoothly as it possibly can."
She poured a generous amount of rich, deep red wine into his mug, the aroma of the fermented grapes filling the air with warmth. Nicholas, ever the appreciative patron, wasted no time as the mug was placed in front of him. He took the opportunity to down a generous gulp, savoring the flavor deeply before wiping his mouth.
"Ah, now that's truly the nectar of the gods,"
he declared, a look of contentment washing over his face. Just as he finished, Nita reappeared with today's culinary highlight. She presented a veritable feast for the senses: 2 succulent roasted honey-glazed rabbit legs, accompanied by a steaming bowl of garlic soup. The soup was no ordinary concoction. It was a hearty blend containing tender chunks of roasted pork, crispy fried potatoes, and toasted bread pieces that were almost cascading over the edge of the bowl like a delicious waterfall. Nicholas felt his mouth water in anticipation.
"Please, make sure to thank your husband in advance for this amazing meal,"
he said with a gleeful lick of his lips, unable to contain his excitement. Without hesitation, he reached for one of the succulent rabbit legs and took a hearty bite, letting out a blissful groan of satisfaction. Nita chuckled softly as she handed him a set of silverware, and he thanked her with a wide grin before diving headfirst into the soup. The broth was still steaming hot, that momentary stung traveling down his throat, but that only fueled his ferocity as he continued to devour the soup. as if it were somehow a race against time.
Patience, patience, it's not going anywhere.
Nita cautioned, her voice a mix of amusement and concern as she poured him another round of wine.
How's your daughter? You haven't brought her around like you used to.
She inquired, her gaze shifting to where Nicholas was seated.
She was doing great the last time I saw her. You know, we have both been busy with our own lives, and I try not to be a bother. I'm not sure what she sees in him, but you know the young run with their hearts, and I am but an old man. I'll tell you this, though. That prince better treat my little girl right, or I'll have to whack him with my staff. Royalty or not.
Nicholas said with mischief in his eyes. Nita chuckled and shook her head.
I hope that little one isn't giving her too much trouble.
At the mere mention of a little one, Nicholas's eyes bulged in surprise, and without warning, he spat red wine all over, his heart racing with excitement.
Little one? Wait. Hold on. I'm a grandfather?
His excitement bubbled over as he nearly leaped from his seat, gestures animated with disbelief and glee.
What have you been living under?
Nita teased, laughing heartily. Then her expression shifted to one of genuine understanding as she placed a hand on her chest.
Oh, but of course, I forgot who I was speaking to. You get so immersed in your research sometimes. I swear you lose track of everything outside your studies. You must remember to make time for your family. Sure, us humans may not have the longevity of elves, but we ought to seize every precious moment in this fleeting existence.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Nicholas sighed, suddenly feeling the weight of his neglect settle heavily on his shoulders, his gaze drifting downwards. He took a moment to reflect on the years that slipped through his fingers.
Yes, you have a grandson,
She reiterated with enthusiasm.
There were royal announcements, grand festivals, and everything. Did she not tell you or send a letter?
She, did.
Nicholas sighed, scratching his head sheepishly.
She sent a letter right after she found out. It was probably months ago, but it's all blurred in my memory. It feels like it was just a week or two ago. I suppose I must have been too absorbed in my research to notice. Again.
Now come on, don't let it get you down. It's not like you can't still be there for her. You could go see her. There's no need for a grand occasion, after all.
Nita cast him a comforting smile, her eyes warm with understanding.
Thank you. Ni.
Nicholas began to respond, but suddenly a look of pain crossed his face. Nita, sensing that something was amiss, looked at him with concern, searching for any signs of distress.
Nick, talk to me. What's wrong?
She urged, her voice growing frantic as she shook his shoulders slightly. Glancing nervously at the food before returning her gaze to his face, she felt a chill of worry creep up her spine. Suddenly, without warning, Nicholas bolted upright from his seat and dashed outside. Confused and increasingly anxious, Nita followed him at a brisk pace. As soon as they burst out the door, Nita's breath caught in her throat. There stood Nicholas, his face unnaturally pale, staring up at the sky as if he had seen a ghost. The air around them grew thick and oppressive, making it increasingly difficult to breathe. Panic surged within Nita as she scanned the street, her heart sinking as she witnessed others collapsing to the ground, clutching their chests in a desperate battle for air. A profound dread settled over her, an unshakable fear that sent chills racing down her spine. For the first time in her 46 years, an overwhelming sense of fear enveloped her like a dark shroud. Even the animals, usually so composed, were rife with panic. Chickens flapped their wings in fervent frenzy, running in wild circles, feathers flying haphazardly as they sought a place to hide. Horses bucked off their riders, frantically attempting to escape the invisible threat that pervaded the air, galloping away in disarray. Nita's heart sank further as she witnessed an elven man struggling valiantly to calm his terrified horse with his magic. But when he reached out to touch his steed with his glowing hand, the beast reared back with a violent whinny, smashing its powerful hooves against the man's face. He crumpled to the ground with a sickening thud, lying there motionless, while the horse galloped off, frothing at the mouth in blind fear. The once bustling marketplace decayed into a scene of chaos as hogs squealed, biting and ramming against the wooden fences confining them. Some turned upon one another in a frenzy of adrenaline, while others sought refuge beneath whatever shelter they could find. The overwhelming sensation of dread intensified anew, forcing Nita to drop to her knees, her heart racing as the atmosphere swirled with chaos around her. Nita felt the weight of dread creeping up her spine like an icy finger. It was an overwhelming sensation of terror, foreign and chilling, and she dropped to her knees, struggling to breathe amidst the pandemonium. No horror she had ever encountered in her 46 years could have prepared her for this disconcerting scene, where the world itself seemed to fragment into chaos before her eyes. As she tilted her head back, Nita's gaze desperately locked onto Nicholas, and with an urgency that suggested the world was about to end, she grasped at the sleeve of his robe like it was a lifeline. The panic clinging to her whispered frantically in her mind, urging her to act, even as his attention remained elsewhere. Finally responding to her frantic plea, Nicholas looked down, his expression shifting rapidly from confusion to alarm. The panic that took over his features was evident. His wide eyes betrayed the weight of the situation they were caught in.
Nita!
He called out, his voice taking on a rough, strained quality that echoed the immense stress he was clearly under. Without a moment's hesitation, he knelt beside her, his hand enveloping her in a protective grip as he quickly assessed her condition, his gaze darting toward the frenzied crowd around them. Everyone else seemed to be suffering from the same affliction. With a gesture that exuded both command and desperation, he thrust his staff forward.
Saratosi,
he called out, his voice cutting through the turmoil like a sharp blade. The moment the incantation left his lips, a brilliant silver light surged forth from the top of his staff, a radiant beam that flickered like a heartbeat. The glow expanded outward, sending pulses of energy cascading through the air, weaving a protective barrier that enveloped not just them, but unfurled across the entire city like a silken tapestry. Nita, feeling the rush of energy fill her lungs, took a deep, steadying breath, struggling to regain her composure amid the chaos. She could feel her heart still pounding, but the enchantment took effect swiftly, allowing a sense of calm to wash over the crowd. One by one, the people around them began to regain their senses, shaking off the disorientation as the spell's power enveloped them, restoring clarity to the confusion that had gripped the streets. They exchanged glances amongst themselves, their earlier fright fading into the backdrop like a bad dream chased away by the morning sun. The atmosphere seemed to thrum with newfound hope, the brilliance of Nicholas's magic casting away the shadows of fear, if only for the moment.